Aha! This is Laborc, and it is so nice to have you here. These are the paints you need. If you like to see the base painting process, you can access to that content on my Patreon page. The link is in the video description. I covered the lizard skin with waagh flash. I use 2 thin coats to cover all the skin surface nice and evenly. Make sure you always wait for the first coat to dry before you apply the next one, or I will slap on your tiny hand. To highlight the skin, I use a mix of elysian green and waagh flash. I cover around 80% of the skin and do some edge highlights along the bigger scales. I talked about this in my previous Marvel Zombies videos, but I like to use more desaturated colors for undead heroes of the game. There are so much you can express with the tonal variations and warmth of your colors, and the desaturated colors always create a more colder, lifeless feel. I continue the process with pure elysian green. I leave all the recessed shadows darker and pick out the edges on the tail, and I leave the back of the miniature intentionally darker. For the maximum highlights, I use a mix of elysian green and ice yellow, adding more edge highlights and volume to the head and all the limbs. This is a laborious process, but the nice thing about the skin is that it's heavily textured, so you don't really need any blending on the surface. The challenging part is to tell where you can sacrifice the recessed shadow for more contrast and where to keep them darker. I think it's okay to move the recessed shadows on the head and the left arm and on the leg in general. Those areas will bring the focal point to the face. I painted the eyes with black off camera to make it easier to see the shape of the eye, because it would be harder to tell where the scaly parts end and where the eyeballs start. Cover the robes with London Grey. Cover all the recesses and parts that you can reach with a brush. For the highlights, I use light grey and cover 80% of the surface. I leave the recesses and lower parts of the robe to the darker grey area, and after I sketch the highlights. I try to follow the shape of the folds to make the highlights more real, and I don't really blend. I just end the highlight where I feel like I have a certain fold shaped in a way that it would naturally create a darker surface next to the highlighted part. Lastly, I mix some ice yellow to the light grey and highlight the robes around the shoulders and elbow that face up. For the eyes, I use pure ice yellow. Always try to reach the eyes from the side, it's way easier in my opinion. Like the rest of the zombie heroes, I like to glaze some fluorescent orange over the eyes and next to the close vicinity of the eye. I use a couple of layers to make the effect more visible, but I only use 2 layers on the eye itself. I cover all the rotten parts of the skin with Drybrush red. I mix some ice yellow to the Drybrush red and pick out different parts to make it look like some flesh showing through. For some reason I jumped to the pants and covered them with naggaroth night while doing the flashy parts. Mix more ice yellow to the mix and reduce the areas inside the previous layer. I think this desaturated pink works really well for rotting flesh and it's super easy to do. Then I painted the tongue, starting with Drybrush red and adding more ice yellow for the highlights, as I did for the rotten flesh parts. After that, I highlighted the pants with phenician purple. At this point, if you are a comic book fan or simply looked on the character's ID card, you'd be like, wait, lizard's pants are not purple. And you are completely right, but for some reason I thought they were purple. But we are going to fix that later. I add some ice yellow to push the contrast on the pants and pick out the foils that face toward our light source that is coming from the left. Mixing more purple, I add some halftones next to the highlights of the purple parts, using thinner layers and glazing between the highlight and the midtones. I highlight all the claws that I previously painted black with light grey using some thin layers. After that, I paint the teeth with ice yellow. Try to leave a little bit of black between each tooth for some extra definition, and while doing so, angle your brush completely parallel to each tooth so you can pick them out one by one more easily. Lastly, I glaze some wine red over the midtones to make the pants look more of a dark magenta. I give a thin layer to all the highlighted parts and add more layers to the midtones, so I'm not muting all the highlights with this step. With that, Zombie Lizard is done and ready for the table. A huge thanks to my Patreons who support these kind of videos. With special shout out to Jonathan Rhodes, Cold Blooded Dom, Trying to Paint Minis, Jonathan Mosner. If you want to support the work of Papa Laborc, you can do that on Patreon, where you will have early access to these videos, or you can get access to PDF guides with other rewards as well. I hope the rest of your day will be as smooth as a granny's butt cheek.